Hello, this is Chef Marcus Guiliano, and I'm your chef on a mission. Today's mission is grass-fed beef. The definition of grass-fed beef. There's a lot of restaurants out there, a lot of stores, that will tell you that we have grass-fed, and it's grain-finished. Or yeah, it's mostly grass-fed, so we can call it grass-fed. I've been battling for years with other chefs on the true definition of grass-fed. Most chefs don't understand the definition of what grass-fed means. So you go to a restaurant and you see grass-fed burger on a restaurant here, or grass-fed steak or grass-fed beef. Here is the true definition. Now the USDA and the American Grass-Fed Association, the AGA, which I've done work for the AGA before when I lived in Colorado in the late 90s. I did some work for them. I wrote some recipes for them. So I was close to the AGA, the American Grass-Fed Association. Now, the AGA and the USDA basically have the same definition. Of course, the USDA likes to prolong their definition. Here it is. I'm going right on the AmericanGrassFed.org website. Standards. American Grass-Fed standards for meat, dairy, and pasture pork have been developed by a team of animal scientists, veterinarians, ranchers, and range management specialists. They concentrate on four main areas of production: diet, confinement, antibiotics and hormones, and origin. Okay, so here we go. The American Grass-Fed standards. Now, this is the American Grass-Fed standards. The USDA Grass-Fed standards will include beef from other countries, I believe. That's one of the biggest differences. So, diet. Here we go. Diet. Animals are fed only grass and forage from weaning until harvest. Let me read that again. Diet. Animals are fed only grass and forage from weaning until harvest. That's it. That's grass-fed beef. It doesn't say 70% grass-fed, 80% grass-fed. It doesn't say 90% grass-fed and grain-fed. There's no gray areas about this, folks. If meat says it that it's grass-fed, it has to be 100%. The USDA standards and the American Grass-Fed Association. That's it. Plain and simple, 100% grass-fed or nothing. It's black or white. It's one or the other. So when a chef says, oh, well, we can call. I just spoke to a chef the other day. And he goes, well, it's 90%, so by law. And I go, whoa. Whose law are you following? By law. And I had to rattle off these to him. And he goes, really? I'm like, of course, yes. So chefs just take it upon themselves because they buy things that they think comes from a pasture. And a lot of, but sometimes it's not the chef's fault. It could be the producer's part, like Pineland Beef. Pineland Beef is a really good beef company. Very good, never ever. No hormones, no antibiotics, never ever. And they're originated in Maine. Now, they have hundreds and hundreds of farms that range from Ohio to Maine. They have processing plants all over the place. And when you go on their website, they show one main farm, grass pastures, and the chefs who buy these things from them, buy the beef from them, think they go on their website, oh, look, it's grass. It's on grass, and it's beautiful, and it's from Maine. Not the case at all. Like I said, hundreds and hundreds of producers, co-ops around from Ohio all the way till Maine. And when you ask them, when you call Pineland, it doesn't say this on their website, when you call them, well, how would it be finished? Well, at 14 months, they go to a feedlot, a consolidated feedlot that Pineland doesn't even own. They rent the feedlots. The beef go in there, they rent the space, finish the beef, and if we were to buy their beef in New York, it's actually processed in Pennsylvania. It's not processed in Maine. You can go to a lot of restaurants here in the New York area that think they're buying, that will tell you, oh, it comes from Maine, it comes from Maine. It's not. I've spoken to them many times. I've used their beef before. Not bad beef, but it's not grass-fed and it's not local from Maine like they like to say. So, diet, 100% grass-fed. Now next, confinement. Here we go. Animals are raised on pasture without confinement to feedlots. So no feedlots, zero feedlots. Antibiotics and hormones. Animals are never treated with antibiotics and growth hormones. Plain and simple, no hormones or antibiotics. Origin, all animals are born and raised on American family farms. And that's the AGA. I prefer the AGA grass-fed standards better than the USDA. They're shorter, they're condensed, it gets right to the point. Almost says the same things, the same lingo. The USDA, again, is the animals can only eat grass and forage from what's on the land there. They can't eat any percentage. They can't even eat 1% of grain, because as soon as you feed it 1% of grain, no longer you can call it. And here's why that's like that. Because cattle goes through several different stages of how you raise cattle. You have the person who calves it. And when I lived in Colorado, I got very involved in this whole thing because I was friends with the ranchers, I was friends with the processors, the mid-feeders, the feedlots, the smaller feedlots, the brand, and the actual slaughterhouse. I was friends with the owner there. So I saw every stage of production of cattle. That's how I learned it, by being around it. So you have the calver who basically has the mom, they has the baby. He feeds them a little bit of grass, a little bit of milk, weans them off. Then they go typically sometimes to an auction. Then they go to a mid-feeder. The mid-feeder buys them and puts them on vast acres of grass. And there they sit on acres of grass for a year and a half. I'm not sure quite how long. Each one's different. 14 months sometimes they go into feedlots. 18 months they'll go into feedlots, depending upon the age. 12 months they might go in, depending upon the beef, the breed, the region of the country, all that kind of stuff, the feed that it has available to it. So the mid-feeder then sells it off to a finisher. The finisher is the person who puts it into the feedlot. And from the feedlot, that's where it gets fattened up. But now, at one point, remember that animal was at a mid-feeder who had it on vast pastures, had it on grass. The mid-feeder's goal, I've been told by mid-feeders, you feed that animal as little as possible. You don't buy grain for it. You stick it out on grass and you let it do its thing on grass and that's it. And then it goes to the finisher, which is the feedlot, and then to the brander, the packer, the co-packer, the slaughterhouse, and out the door is who knows what brand based upon where it came from. Sometimes has no representation of where it came from. So, technically speaking, every animal out there, every beef, every cow, every heifer, has consumed grass in its diet. That's just how it goes. It's consumed grass. So if you go and have that mentality that every animal's eating grass, then realistically you could call every animal grass-fed beef. So every time you go to the store and you look at beef, doesn't say grass-fed, that animal did eat grass at some point in its life. But if you were to be able to call it grass-fed, it's too confusing. If it's 80%, 90%, 95%, 50%, those are too confusing. That's not the law. And the last person I spoke to said, well, our attorney told us that, our legal counsel. I said, well, your legal counsel is wrong. You don't need to pay legal counsel to open up the USDA guidelines and read right there. You don't need to pay an attorney to do that. You can do that yourself. It's very simple. Here's how you do it. You go on their website and it gives you the strict definition of it. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. So this restaurant for several years was serving grass-fed burgers. More famous popular restaurant in New York City, and was serving grass-fed burgers, and they weren't grass-fed. In fact, the places that they're buying them from, when you call them, they were saying, well, gee, yeah, no, we don't claim it's grass-fed, and it goes into a feedlot. So a lot of these family farms, it goes into a feedlot, it gets finished, or it gets finished on the farm with grain. So that's the story, folks. It's simple. Grass-fed beef can only eat grass and forage from the land. That's it. Hope that helped you with your definition of grass-fed beef. So now when a chef says to you, oh, it's grass-fed, grain-finished, see, that's the wrong thing. A restaurant should not be calling something, well, here our burgers are grass-fed, grain-finished. Grass-fed is confusing. It's cut or dry, folks. It's either grass-fed or it's grass-fed 100% or that's it. So to say grass-fed, grain-finished, the chef knows that you want grass-fed beef, that you, the consumer, want it. But the chef knows he's not buying it. So the chef then is going to manipulate and trick you like, oh, well, yeah, you're eating partially grass-fed beef. All the beef you eat is partially grass-fed. That's the bottom line to begin with. There's no, like I said, it's black or white. There's no gray area. You're 100% or you're nothing. Hope that helped you with your definition of grass-fed beef. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please hit like, subscribe, and definitely pass this on.